Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Journey of You Joycast. I am Felicia Wong, and today I'm recording a solo episode. I'm so happy to be here with you today, sharing this topic um, all about your genius, and your zone of genius, and what that means.
Welcome back to another episode of Joy, the Journey of You podcast. We're your hosts, Devin and Chris, and we're here for joy.
This podcast is your permission slip to reconnect to your inherent joy and to embrace it.
Let's fill up the cosmic joy pot together as we dive in to today's episode.
One of the things I did in preparation for this recording was to re-listen to the greatness episode. And I have a friendly invitation for you all to do so. If you haven't listened to it or it's been a while, go back and revisit it. It's so great. No pun intended. It's so fantastical. And Devin and Chris really give some tangible guidance into meeting your greatness and what that means and how you can live in that more often. And so it really dovetails into today's episode. If you don't have time to listen to it right now, it's okay. It's not a prerequisite. How I've experienced genius is that our genius is our application of our greatness. Now, what do I mean by that? Like, if you've listened to the ego episode, right? Devin and I talk about the ego being the individual expression of the soul. And so, as such, each of us have unique gifts and strengths and values that we bring that absolutely no one else on this planet has. And in some ways, it feels daunting and overwhelming. Like, oh, really? I don't know. And in some ways, it feels like, oh, think about the possibilities. Think about the magic. Think about how unique you are on this earth. Now, with that, in your life, there are certain things that you do that bring out your greatness, your magic in ways that feel so aligned and so flowy and so enlivened. It sparks you. It sparks every cell in your being, right? And so when you're applying your greatness in your zone of genius, it's endless possibilities. You will get lost in your tasks for hours, whatever it is that you're doing. So let's give you an example of what something might be considered a zone of genius. It could be, for instance, for me, it's playing music, right? So anytime I'm playing guitar, piano, ukulele, whatever, and I'm singing and I'm learning something new, or I'm just getting lost in something I've played before and it really moves me. It could be listening to music can get you in there. And what else? Writing, creative things, anything you're creating with your hands, like gardening. Oh, what a beautiful way to get into your zone of genius. And they'll be unique to you. Like, from my experience, every single person has multiple things that are within their zone of genius. And that's also part of the beauty of it, is what calls to you, what speaks to you, and how your greatness is best channeled into this life. Okay. Now I should say that the first time I was introduced to the concept of the zone of genius, it was through a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. It's pretty magical. But here's like a little synopsis of what it is. He talks about 4 zones that we each operate in. One is the zone of incompetence. That sounds terrible, but we all have them. Just as we have things that we're magically attracted to do, we also have things that, probably will never have an interest in this thing, right? So the zone of incompetence is where you might spend hours and hours and hours trying to do a task and you have no joy in it. It doesn't, you don't want to really learn about it. You're not that good at it and you don't want to be better at it. And that's okay, right? knowing what's not for you is another gateway into like a step closer into knowing what is for you. And so I loved one of the examples the author gave, right, was he's a consultant and he charges his rate something like $1,000 an hour as a consultant. And one weekend he bought this high-tech printer and he spent the entire weekend trying to set it up. And he was like, oh, I still can't get it. So he hires a local college student. This person sets it up within an hour, right? And he paid him $100, easy peasy. And it was like, oh gosh, like how many hours of time did I lose in spending time doing this task in my zone of incompetence? So there's the first zone that we can operate in. The second zone is called the zone of competence. These are tasks that mostly anybody can do, at a fairly decent competency. What would I say? Like tasks that would be like cleaning your house, for instance, right? Like, yeah, there's different levels of which we clean our house, but everybody, for the most part, can clean their house. Okay. The next zone is particularly interesting. It's called the zone of excellence. And while it sounds really good, it's like, ooh, I excel at all of these things. They can actually hinder us from jumping into the zone of genius. So the zone of excellence, yes, like I said, things that you do really, really well. You're excellent at them. People learn to depend on you for them. And then they kind of expect you to fill this role. And it's also very comfortable. You know what? I'm good enough at it. I can do it. It might make me money, right? If that's what your current job is in. And it's fine. It's fine. However, it does not light that spark, that infectious joy, the vibrancy, right? It's just like, ho hum, I do this thing. And I'll get into a little bit of more of my example a little later. But here's where we get to the good stuff, the zone of genius. As I said before, it's where you can get lost for hours in doing something and learning about something. You watch videos about it, you're passionate about it. With gardening, for instance, right? You just love the feeling of the soil in your hands. You love growing new things. You love seeing your hard work pay off. Maybe you're growing a garden, right? And it's abundant and you have lots of fruits and vegetables to eat at the end of the harvest. And it just brings you so much joy. Even the process of pickling your vegetables, right, could bring you, and canning your fruits could bring you so much joy. Gardening, honestly, is not for me, but I can see how people would be so enlivened by this. And so today, that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how do we open up more to your zone of genius so that you can spend more time in this space of endless possibilities, in the space getting lost in tasks and not tasks like how we traditionally think of your to-do list, but more so in creative endeavors that spark you, that feel like you. Yeah. So I'll give you an example, right? As most of you know, I worked as an engineer for 12 years. I went to engineering school, obviously, if I worked as an engineer. I studied engineering and I thought I really, really, really liked it. And to be honest, it did spark interest. But part of what I liked was problem solving, getting good grades. Yeah, for sure. I was good at it. I was good at physics and math. But I didn't feel the need to read endless, academic articles about it or find out more about these things that if I was truly passionate about, I would have. And I would have been excited to research and learn and then apply it into my daily life. Right. And I spent 12 years in this. I was, you know, fairly excellent. I was steadily progressing in my career as you would expect, and it was a great source of income. So yeah, I became identified as an engineer. It also was comfortable. It was somewhere that I knew I could get a job in. I knew I could do well enough at, right? But something was missing. And so when I did take that break from engineering and I thought about the possibilities of my life, and I realized how much my friends and my family members, and even at that time, I was starting to dabble in bowling coaching, right? How much people came to me for advice and how much I loved asking questions and being curious about like, oh, why, what makes you think this, or how does that make you feel, or where in your life have you experienced that, and what would you like more of in life, right? And I was very fascinated by the human psyche. And the more I got into the coaching world, taking courses and connecting with people on that level, the more I was like, oh yes, this is for me. And yes, there are still moments when my ego can come up in a way that holds me back, right? And it says, are you really the right person to be doing that kind of coaching? Or are you really, shouldn't you refer them to this person? Or are you going to have value enough to give advice on X, right? And so what happens with comfort and the zone of excellence is that it keeps you playing kind of small. And we've talked about this in various episodes in throughout the podcast, right? Is it's just funny because as I think about it, I'm like, oh, taking that big leap, which is why the book is called The Big Leap. It it requires courage and it requires bravery. And so one of my zones of genius is writing as well. Now, I didn't think I would actually be a writer. Like, sure, I liked it, but I didn't know um, how much of an outlet it could be for me. And so I started a blog. And when I first started this blog, it was very nerve wracking. I, it was so vulnerable. I tend not to sugarcoat anything. And so it was hard putting that piece of my soul out there for people to see and witness. And the more I've done it, the more I've gotten comfortable with it. And the more it's become actually so funny. I just wrote a big blog post today on my Patreon account that was the longest I've written, and it didn't even intend it to be. It just flowed that way. And again, I ended up writing for an hour and it didn't even feel like an hour. It just felt like it just came right out. And so, what does this mean for you? Right? Maybe this discussion has already got you thinking about areas of your life where you're in your zone of incompetence. I hope we don't spend too much time in there, but it's easy to do. One, okay, so here's another example. I have been beekeeping with my husband in the past week. My husband's a commercial beekeeper. He needed help, and there was no one else at the time, so I helped. And I thought, why would we hire someone else to do this thing? And it's actually quite in my zone of incompetence. It was hard. I While I got a very deep appreciation for beekeeping and what he does, it's not something that I'm going to go out and spend endless hours on. It's just not. And being able to recognize that in myself and know that that's okay, right? I can help when it's needed. If we can hire someone else who may have more of an affinity for doing this thing, lovely. So much better. It frees up my space, my soul, my mental state of mind to do things like this, like the podcast, to write, to coach, right? And to do things that really light me up. So let's see if we can take a dive with you into these areas of your life. Okay. So if you're in a space and time to do so, I invite you to join me on this guided meditation, guided practice, where we'll take you into the things that I'm talking about. So if you are driving, feel free to listen along and come back to this later. You know the drill. Okay. If you are able to do so, come to a space of quiet, stillness. Get comfortable in your seat. Let's take some nice deep breaths together. Feeling the ground beneath you, either with your feet or your seat, or feeling the chair beneath you, the bed, whatever it is. Allowing yourself to settle in this space. Maybe feeling your spine grow a little bit taller. And taking stock of the quality of your breath. So first I'll guide you into the zone of incompetence, right? Think about a time when you did a task that made you feel a little bit stuck, like your body was resisting. You almost felt like a little kid, like, oh, I don't wanna, right? It could be something like doing your taxes. Maybe it is something like doing your laundry, right? Cleaning the house, organizing a closet, whatever it is, something that made you feel resistant. Notice where that lands in your body. Notice any sensations that are coming up. And then notice your internal dialogue. Like what questions are coming up? What thoughts? Notice if that feels contractive. And then if this example happens, or even if it didn't happen, right? Just imagine paying someone to do the task for you. Yes, even though we may not want to part with our money, right? Think about that task being done exactly how you wanted to, and you didn't have to do it. It happened. Does that feel lighter? Does that feel more at ease? Okay. Now let's take a deep breath. Sigh it out your mouth. And you can even tap on your chest if you like. I often find this helps kind of just reset things. Good. Yeah. Notice your system settling back out. And then we'll take you into this space where Chris often goes in her guided practices, right? Whereas let's walk into, imagine a place where everything has loved you since the beginning of time. It's your happy space. If you have a hard time connecting with this place, picture like a dog or a cat and that unconditional love that they give you. Sometimes I can see myself lying in a meadow, right? And the dogs are laying around me and they're just like, yay, we love you. Okay. And so from this space, think about a task or something that you do that brings you into this space more, where you feel joyous, where you feel like there's endless possibilities, where you feel enlivened and vivacious. Where you feel passionate. You're excited by it. You could do this thing for days on end and be like, wow, this, I can always do this forever. Notice how that feels in your body. What's lit up in you? Right now, I can even feel tingles through every cell of my being. Just take a moment and ask yourself, like, ooh, where could this even be expanded more in my life? How good could this be? All right. And gently come back into your body. Yeah, maybe feel your feet or your seat on the surface beneath you. Wiggle your toesies, wiggle your fingers. Take a nice deep inhale. And then sigh your breath out. And then when you're ready, you can gently blink your eyes open, come back into the space, into this room. Mm. I hope you can still feel the tingles of that exercise. And I invite you to reflect on how you can invite more of that into your life on a more regular basis, right? So even if it's making intentional time for an activity, right? Once a week, where you can feel into that flow and that expansiveness and that joy and vibrancy, and how that might make you feel. Yeah. And then another activity or another invitation, right, is to take note of what you do on a day to day. If you want to get deeper into this, if you want to invite more of this in, because in your zone of genius, it is magical, it's playful, it's curious, there's no expectations. It's just delight and fun. Okay. And joy, which is what we're all about. So, if you want to dive deeper into that, take note of which tasks are in which zones for you, right? And some of those tasks, yeah, we'll just have to do. And that's fine. It is part of the daily existence, right? This being human on earth. Also take note of what tasks are in that zone of incompetence that might be weighing you down. And as Devin mentioned in her last episode, The Inner Wilds, right? She talked about the shoulds. Okay, so shoulds can exist in the zone of incompetence, in the zone of competence, and in the zone of excellence. In the zone of genius, shoulds are no there. They're not there. Okay. So my example, right, with the zone of incompetence about beekeeping, like I should do this. We shouldn't have to hire someone else. I should be able to push through, grit my teeth, and just do it, even though every single cell of my being is like, no, don't do it. Okay. So, are there tasks that you're currently doing or activities that you're currently doing in your life that are in that zone of incompetence? Are there things that you can push on, like not push, but take off your plate? Just a little inventory, right? You don't have to, but is there are there places where you can make space so that anytime you feel that constrictive, like fighty, trying, forcing, right? Those might be triggers that, hey, okay, yeah, we might be living like egoic resistance, or they might really be in your zone of incompetence. Okay. And notice what's in your zone of excellence. What do people rely on you for? What are you staying in your comfort zone to do? Because, yeah, I'm pretty good at it. I could just stay here forever. It's fine. And it is fine. And I invite you to open up just to more, right? More joy, more magic. So then takes note of the things that make you feel light and fluffy and awoken. Awoken? Yeah, sure. To magical things, right? And this is also connected to the inner wilds, right? Then things and possibilities start coming up and opportunities that you never knew were possible, but we just opened up to them more. And it was amazing. So that's it for this episode today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that, if nothing else, right, you take that spark and you notice where it lights you up in your day to day, and you invite more of that into your being, into your space. And over time, right, we're just growing our container for that level of genius. Let us know. Always, always, always talk to us about, leave comments about how this episode landed for you and what areas you want to explore your zone of genius in. Thank you so much for listening today. And let's fill up that cosmic joy pot together. Have a great day.